It is March 1, 2014. You are watching surveillance footage from the hallway of a Holiday Inn Express in Northeast Washington, D.C. A man walks down the corridor. He is 51 years old. His name is Kahlil Tatum and he works as a janitor at a nearby homeless shelter. He has been there for years. He knows the families. He gives gifts. He is friendly. He is trusted. Walking beside him is a child. She is 8 years old. She is wearing a pink jacket. Her name is Relisha Rudd and she has been living at the D.C. General Family Shelter with her family since they lost their housing. The shelter has bedbugs and dirty showers and no playground. It is no place for a child. But it is where Relisha lives. You watch her walk down the hallway beside this man. You watch her go through a door. You never see her come back out. That surveillance footage is the last confirmed sighting of Relisha Rudd. She has been missing for more than 11 years. She would be 20 years old today. Her grandmother says she thinks about her every day. Her grandmother calls her her best friend. Relisha has never been found. Relisha Rudd was born on October 29, 2005, in Washington, D.C. The daughter of a family that had fallen through the cracks of the systems designed to catch people exactly like them. By early 2014, the family was living at D.C. General Family Shelter, a former hospital converted into emergency housing that had become, by the accounts of residents and investigators alike, one of the most dangerous and neglected places in the nation's capital. The shelter had a no-fraternization policy between staff and residents. That policy existed for a reason. It was regularly ignored. Relisha was described by teachers who knew her as bright and energetic, a child who loved school, who engaged enthusiastically with learning, who showed up every day. Her school attendance record was one of the earliest institutional signals that something had gone wrong, and one of the signals that went unheeded the longest. She stopped attending school in mid-February 2014. Nobody called her family. Nobody investigated. Nobody reported her missing. 2 weeks passed. Kahlil Tatum had worked as a janitor at D.C. General Family Shelter long enough to know which families were most vulnerable. He began giving gifts to Relisha and her mother, small things, gestures of friendliness that built trust over time. A relationship developed between Tatum and Relisha's family that investigators would later describe as deliberately cultivated. The no-fraternization policy that should have governed every interaction between shelter staff and residents was not enforced. Nobody flagged the gifts. Nobody flagged the relationship. Nobody flagged the fact that a 51-year-old shelter employee was developing a close personal connection with an 8-year-old resident in her family. Tatum began taking Relisha out of the shelter. Her mother allowed it. The exact nature of the justifications offered, and accepted, has never been fully established publicly. What is known is that by late February 2014, Relisha was regularly leaving the shelter with Tatum, and the people responsible for her safety allowed it to happen. On February 26, 2014, 5 days before the last confirmed surveillance footage, Relisha was checked into a hotel by Tatum. She was not in school. She was not at the shelter. She was with a man 3 times her age in a hotel room in Northeast Washington, D.C. Nobody knew. Nobody checked. Relisha was missing for more than 2 weeks before police were notified. She had not been in school since mid-February. Her family had not reported her. The shelter had not noticed. The school had not escalated. The system had not caught the gap. Not by law enforcement, not by the shelter, not by her family reporting her missing, but by an attendance review process that finally generated enough paperwork to trigger a question nobody had yet asked. Where is Relisha Rudd? D.C. Metropolitan Police began investigating. They identified Kahlil Tatum immediately. The surveillance footage, the gifts, the hotel check-ins, the pattern were all quickly established. What they could not find was Tatum. On March 31, 2014, 1 month after Relisha was last seen, investigators found Tatum's wife, Andrea Tatum, shot dead in a Travelodge motel in Jessup, Maryland. She had been murdered. On April 1, 2014, Kahlil Tatum was found dead in Kenilworth Park in Northeast Washington, D.C. from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He had killed himself before investigators could reach him. Relisha was not with him. No evidence of Relisha was found at Kenilworth Park. Searchers later found bones in the area that were determined to be non-human. Investigators believe Kahlil Tatum killed Relisha Rudd before taking his own life. Her body has never been found. No one has ever been charged in connection with her disappearance. The case remains officially open. The hotel where Relisha was last seen was known to police for sex trafficking activity. That detail. A building with a known trafficking history, a child on surveillance footage going through a door and not coming back out, sits at the center of the unanswered questions that have defined this investigation for more than a decade. The Relisha Rudd case is not only the story of what one man did to one child. It is the story of how many systems failed her simultaneously, and how each failure created the conditions for the next. The shelter failed her. D.C. General Family Shelter had bedbugs, dirty showers, and no playground. It had a no-fraternization policy that was not enforced. It had staff who gave gifts to child residents without consequence. The school system failed her. Relisha stopped attending school in mid-February. No one escalated her absence to law enforcement for 2 weeks. In a case involving a missing child, 2 weeks is an eternity. The family failed her. Her mother permitted a 51-year-old shelter employee to take her 8-year-old daughter on unsupervised outings and hotel stays. The reasons why, the vulnerabilities, the trust that was deliberately cultivated and exploited, are complex. But the outcome is not. The city failed her. D.C. General Family Shelter was no place for a child. The conditions that placed Relisha and her family there, housing instability, poverty, the collapse of the safety net below the safety net, were known and documented and not adequately addressed. July 11th has been designated Relisha Rudd Remembrance Day in Washington, D.C. Each year the community gathers to keep her name visible. A $50,000 reward remains active for information that leads to her recovery. She has not been recovered. The Relisha Rudd case presents the most systemically complex behavioral analysis, because the behavioral failures that led to her disappearance were not committed by one person but by multiple institutions simultaneously, each operating within its own norms and each failing to connect its failure to the failures happening beside it. Begin with Kahlil Tatum's behavioral methodology. What Tatum demonstrated across the weeks before Relisha's disappearance is a textbook application of what forensic psychologists call grooming. The deliberate, systematic process by which a predator builds trust with a child and their caregivers before exploitation occurs. Grooming operates through escalating normalization. Small gifts become larger gifts. Supervised contact becomes unsupervised contact. Brief outings become overnight stays, each step accepted because the previous step established a precedent. The gifts Tatum gave to Relisha and her mother were not random kindness. They were investment. They were the construction of a relationship in which his presence around Relisha became expected, welcomed, and eventually unquestioned. The no-fraternization policy that existed at D.C. General was specifically designed to prevent this dynamic, and its non-enforcement created the precise conditions Tatum required. The behavioral profile of a groomer operating within an institutional environment, a shelter, a school, a sports program, consistently includes specific elements your catalog has examined before. The selection of vulnerable targets, the cultivation of caregiver trust, the gradual escalation of access, and the exploitation of institutional blind spots. Tatum's access to Relisha was not accidental. It was architected. The institutional behavioral failures are equally diagnostic. Each system that touched Relisha's life operated according to its own protocols, and none of those protocols required communication with the others. The shelter's no-fraternization policy was internal. The school's attendance tracking was internal. Law enforcement's missing persons protocols were triggered only by a report. In the gaps between these systems, the space where no single institution had full visibility, Relisha disappeared. This is what social services researchers call system fragmentation, the failure of parallel institutional systems to share information in ways that would reveal patterns invisible to any single institution operating alone. The Tatum suicide is the behavioral detail that has most profoundly shaped the investigation's trajectory. A perpetrator who dies before arrest takes their knowledge with them. Tatum's death closed the one pathway that could have led directly to Relisha, his own testimony about what happened and where she was. Every investigative avenue since April 1, 2014 has been working around the absence of that testimony rather than through it. The suicide was not accidental closure. Whether it was deliberate closure, whether Tatum chose death specifically to prevent investigation from reaching Relisha, is a question that has never been answered and now cannot be. Relisha Rudd was 8 years old. She walked down a hotel corridor in a pink jacket on March 1, 2014, and went through a door. She has not come back out in more than 11 years. Her grandmother calls her best friend. The reward is $50,000. The door is still closed.